Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sabado night.
Sabado nights. It's been 2 weeks, and the last guest we had here is Dr.
Hayden
Ko, and we had a wonderful celebration. Lasted 2 hours, and we didn't even notice the time go by. And we have been having great conversations here.
Right.
We started with Marvin, and then we had
Stephen Webb.
Stephen Webb and
Carlo Mata.
Carlo Mata. Well, it was Stephen Webb. He's from the States and talked about leadership and all of that. And last Sabado nights, we had a conversation with Hayden Ko and about apologetics. And he told
Be
us
able to defend our faith.
Yes, but he told us his wonderful testimony as well. And I'm sure it touched a lot of lives, and we're blessed. And tonight, I believe we're gonna be extremely blessed as well, because we have
the king of musical theater joining us tonight. He's not just, he's not just somebody you see perform. He's very close to our heart.
Yes.
In fact, we call him Tito Audie. But we believe that you're going to have...
Only because he's that old. But you won't notice. Just kidding.
Tito Audie, we love you. You know that.
Yes.
But we do believe that, hearing from him, because it's a... you know that we are from theater, but to hear from somebody that's been in theater a very long time, not to say that he's old, but he's just been doing this a very long time, and to see what it's like to be a believer in that type of industry as well. And I believe that he has a lot of insights. There are a lot of things he's going to share from his heart, and I think it's going to bless you tremendously as you hear from him tonight.
So for those of you who have inclinations to do theater or acting or any artistic thing. I mean, doing worship and praise and worship and stuff on in the church, we get that sense of production and all of that, right? So
performance, just a little, but it's not that.
And some of the things, the illustrations that we do, even on when we're preaching, doing our sermons, we get some of those things from the exercises and the things that we've learned as well in theater. So.
That's right.
That's our background, and for I think some of you may have heard me tell the story that I thought my life was going to go this way, but God is full of surprises, and tonight is Audie Gemora.
That's right.
So Tito Audie,
come on in and join the
curtains
conversation.
open up. There you go.
Wow, sabi ko, kung kailan nag-lockdown at may pandemic, we're all reaching out to each other, right? Yep. I haven't seen you two since Pastor Mylene's birthday last year.
Oh, really?
No, Tito Audie, you saw us.
Where?
Did you see us at Joseph Dreamer?
Yes, we were there.
Hindi ko na maalala.
Oh,
Tito
Audie, we have
I didn't Joseph, but more about that later.
Yes.
Okay,
we have proof. We have pictures.
Okay, matanda na ako. Senior ako, I admit.
No, it's all good. Tito Audie, thank you for. Is that okay if I call you that? Because that's how I know to call you. No?
Ako naman yung tito ng bayan.
Yes. Actually, people call me Tito now, so I'm like.
Talaga?
Yes.
I know. The younger ones, Tito Audie, call us Tito and Tita. It's kind of like, wow, that's really sad. But that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. We're like wine, right? We get better with age.
With age, we started with just, you casual Alvin, whatever, and then it became Kuya Alvin, and then Tito. And I'm sure it's going to progress to greater glory.
Let's keep it at that. Walang mga dolo-dolo.
That is not allowed. Okay,
no.
we will.
Well, no, we tell our kids to call you what? Lolo Audie.
Di dapat, Tito na lang. We're forever young.
Yes, Tito Audie, sure.
Theater people don't age. We're not supposed to. We're not allowed to.
We have a common friend that I remember seeing his resume before, and a very extensive playing age, like 15, 20 years, from this age to that age. So I go, wow, impressive.
Oh.
I know who we're talking about.
Yes. Um,
Uh,
for many of you who do not know, and I guess we'll touch on it later on if we have the time, but Tito Audie is one of the influences in my life, and the reason why I believe God used him, that now I am,
Where you
a
are.
Christian and now a pastor. And, I'd never forget that. I don't know where we were. I don't know the scenario. I just remember. Yes, Tito?
You were
sabi ko,
saying?
it's crazy, unbelievable. I had no idea you would
Yes.
become a pastor. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing talaga.
Oh, Tito Audie was there when we were ordained.
Yes, we invited him. And so he's
Yeah.
been there in the, like, important moments in our lives,
Yeah.
But I still remember a scene, in my head, that you invited me to audition for Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and I was doing something else from in another theater company, and we happened to be in the same. I think that was when we were doing Saigon stuff, right? With that concert with Schoenberg. I think that's one of the things we were doing, and Limes as well. We've had a couple of shows together, and you just invited me. Why don't you join? And me naman, sabi ko, I wanted to try something different and I wanted to try something new, so might as well. And all I knew at that time was whatever theater company I was stuck in for the longest time. But let's talk about you, Tito Audie. For a lot of
No,
people,
wait. Let's talk
Yeah.
about karamihan ng mga tao hindi nyo alam, siguro nakilala nyo si Alvin and si Mitch as leaders of a church, pastoring a church, but they were really nag-umpisa sila actors. Alvin I met when he was very very young in a theater company called Repertory Philippines. And doon din ako nagsimula. But I had long left repertory in the late 90s. I had long left repertory. And Alvin was still a resident actor there. And I had already put up with some co-founders, Trumpets, which is the country's first Christian theater company. And we were all in one mall, Shangri-La Mall. And Shangri-La Mall, sa nakakaalala, there used to be, Repertory used to have a theater there called the William J. Shaw.
Yes.
And so they had a season. So
Well, it looks like Tito Audie froze a little bit.
yeah, am I back?
Okay,
there you go.
You're back.
Yes.
You're back.
So no, I was saying that in Shangri-La Mall, Repertory had a company called, had a theater called William J. Shaw, and Alvin was there. Andun siya. He was one of the resident actors. And ako naman, I joined a company called Trumpets, and we were naman on the other side of the mall, the other side of the mall. And then above us, there was a movie house that they converted into a theater. And naalala ko, Alvin, because kami sa Trumpets, we were already saying, okay, how do we get other theater people to get to know the Lord? We were already thinking about that. So sabi ko, okay, but why do we look further? Just next door to us is Repertory Philippines. So I'm doing a production with them. So let me see who there might be open to joining, because there was a service upstairs in that theater every weekend. So I remember after the production, I think that yung nga sabi mo, that was the Schoenberg plus, but we were doing other things, no? Alvin was one of those people that I said, ito, pwede to eh. So I remember inviting you. I don't know if you remember, but I do remember inviting you before nag-audition ka ng Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. I do remember inviting you to go up to one of those services. And I think you went. I don't know kung at that time kung natamaan ka na or if a seed was planted, but you did go. But it wasn't until, like you said, until you joined Trumpets, Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, but eventually it bore fruit. you know. Um,
Yeah.
if we were to look back at the time when I was looking at Alvin as this young theater actor who had only one thing in mind, which was to be good at what he does, which is theater, I would have never thought that one day he would pastor a church.
Same
Okay.
here. Same
Yeah.
here.
See,
I
see-
remember
see-
that service.
Do you? Yo,
Yeah,
let's,
it was,
let's put our relationship in context para alam nila how far you've come, you know?
It was Mio who first. You invited me, but it was Mio who brought me to that church
The
actually.
church.
And I remember the preaching because the pastor was scaring me to hell. I mean, he was scaring me that I'm gonna go to hell, right? I remember that preaching, and so out of fear, syempre, you give your life to Jesus without totally understanding. But I don't really, I don't count that as the time that I gave my life to Christ because
It was out of fear.
it was not out of faith.
Yeah.
It was just like, "Well, everybody's going down, might as well go down with them." But I think the seed got planted. But where I got saved was not in church. Remember this, Tito Audie?
Backstage.
I got saved backstage during the cast party of Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, August 30. That's the date.
Wow.
1997. I remember
Wow.
that because that shifted my life. And you guys were all instrumental of where I'm at. So whatever seed you've sown, I'm paying it back. And,
Yeah.
No, every seed that they've sown and every harvest that you have is
Yeah.
also to you,
accounted to you.
to your account. Yeah.
So, but I want to go back to your journey
The very beginning.
from the very beginning. Not quite in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. Not quite.
Although
But-
I feel like I've been around that long.
Let's start with the Audie Gemora from the province. You were born in Bacolod,
Iloilo.
Iloilo, right?
Mhm.
Let's not reveal what year, but how was what do you remember of your childhood growing up? I don't know when you moved here in Manila permanently, but what do you remember of your childhood, just for people to have an idea?
Well, as I go back to my childhood, I do want to say that I've thought about this many times, that God really purposed us to do something in our lives, and you are already born into something because He already has a purpose that you are going to end up doing, and so nothing really becomes an accident. And so if I trace back my life and where I ended up and how I ended up where I was, it was so orchestrated. Because here I am. I'm a little Ilonggo boy in Iloilo, born to a fairly well-off family. I come from a family of sugar planters, and back in the 50s and 60s, the sugar industry was booming.
Yeah.
And my parents had just really begun, building their wealth. And I was a menopause baby. Myself and a younger brother came after a first set of siblings. The gap between my older sister and myself was 16 years. So by the time we were born, my parents were already well established, and they wanted a better life for the younger ones. So they decided that they were going to move us to Manila. My oldest sister had gone to Spain to study Spanish and all of that. And when she came back, she was teaching in Manila at the American school. And so when my mother decided that she was going to bring her two younger ones to Manila to study, she put us in America.
We'll just
So
wait.
parang yes, at least my sister was teaching Spanish in American school, so my mom put me there. I couldn't speak a word of English when I went to
Yeah.
American school. In fact, I had to repeat kindergarten twice kasi I couldn't understand the language. I was only speaking in Ilonggo. But in American school, when I grew up, of course, my second language and eventually became my first language was English.
Mhm.
Right.
So that I would use English later on when I went into theater. But
Yeah.
for most of my life staying in American school, I really did not fit in because I was young. I came from the province. I felt I was out of place. My parents were much older than I was. They were actually like grandparents because I was a menopause baby. So they hardly spent time, with me in school. And when you don't have parents, building you and being there supportive all the time, you grow up a very insecure kid who really doesn't quite fit in. I wasn't very smart in school. I was kind of like a C average student, and I wasn't athletic because my father naman wasn't into sports and didn't really support me when we were doing PE and all that. So I wasn't a jock. I wasn't an intellectual person. But what I discovered early on in my growing up years was that I loved to draw. So most of the time I spent in the art room, just basically drawing and painting. And I became kind of like, I grew up in American school, which eventually became the international school, which Mitch went to.
That's right.
Grew up as the class artist, but I was very much a loner. I just most of the time stayed in the art room. And then finally, after so many years, when I got to high school, I said to myself, enough. I didn't want to be a nobody anymore. So what I did was I started to join different clubs, just to get out of my shell. I made a conscious effort to tell myself, I no longer want to be a nobody. I wanted to be somebody. And the only way I thought I could do that is to join up and join as many activities, after school activities, as I could. So I joined the choir, and then I finally, in my junior year, I joined drama club. And I auditioned for a production. There was this lady, American lady named Ruth Butler. I don't know, Mitch, kung naabutan mo si Ruth Butler.
No, but I know her. Yes.
Yeah, she was this tall lady with platinum. She had like big platinum blonde hair. She was walking in high heels. She had all these bangles. So one of those things that she did was she recruited me for a musical called Oklahoma. Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma. And I just said yes, not knowing what that was all about, and went about rehearsals. And then when we got on to perform at the Morocco Theater, this was in 1976. Something happened. I don't know. The moment I got on stage, I just felt like a fish in water. It felt like I know what I'm doing. This is easy, and I'm enjoying it. And the next day at homeroom is like the first class you have before the rest of your classes begin. Everybody went to my table, and everybody was saying, "Oh, you're so good! You sang so well!" Blah blah blah. And so, from the most unpopular kid in school, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to be my friend, and that did something to me. That changed me. It's like all of a sudden, I found out who I was, or what I was good at. And so I very quickly became the drama club president, and then we went on to do more plays. But because of the confidence and the friends that I made and the acceptance and the affirmation, my grades started to shoot up. I started to do sports. I got good at sports. In fact, my PE teacher, who I grew up with, said, "What happened to you, Gemora? Tingnan niyo si Gemora. He didn't used to be. Now he's like, he's like he's getting to become like a jock. I mean, what's happening here?" And it really had a lot to do with finding out what your design is, with what you're good at. And once you have that acceptance and affirmation from people, and you know what you're good at, you have the confidence to do everything else. So the grades improved. All my grades improved. So everything was great. Everything was great because of the theater. And I owe it to that lady, Ruth Butler, who introduced me to the theater. And soon after I graduated, I auditioned for Repertory Philippines. And I just wanted to test my mettle because everybody was telling me how good I was. And here was Repertory Philippines. It was the only English theater company that was professional. And everybody said that it was hard to get in. And I wanted to test if I could get in. And I got in. And I remember my audition, I came in. And Zenaida Amador, who is the founder, she was looking up anymore, and people were just going in and out, and she wasn't looking anymore. And I came on, and I started to sing, and she looked up with me, and with this loud voice, and she was a very butchy woman, so she was like in her big butch, her best butch stance, leaned towards me, and she said with her cigarette, are you passionate about the theater? And I was like, what does she mean? So I just said, yeah, I am, and so I was taken in, and that was for the musical A Chorus Line. I started as a chorus boy, and it was at Repertory Philippines that I learned to love this craft. The theater was just a way for me to get accepted in high school. But when I got into professional theater, I realized that you need to love this craft, and you need to afford it the passion, the dedication, and the discipline to be good at it. You can't take it like it was just a game. It's not enough that you're talented. You need to really work at it to become good at what you do. And that is what I did for most of my career, and that's how I probably got a boy be in the theater many years later. God had plotted it out. God plotted out that I would be born in a fairly wealthy family because there was no money in theater, and if I had been born in a family that had to struggle, I would have never done theater, or maybe not in that form, or it would have taken longer. But the fact that my family could afford to, put me in a good school where I learned to speak English and where I discovered theater, that afforded me my first opportunity. So God kind of planned it. God kind of planned it.
No,
so,
I mean,
so that's my background. That's my background.
No, but you see, you found a passion, and if you guys haven't seen Tito Audie perform, that's one of the things that always impresses me, even now, is that even if Tito Audie is standing on a stage, just him, and let's just say Meralco stage is huge, but when Tito Audie stands on that stage, he commands that stage.
I remember the director you were saying, Zenaida Abanor, she was also my director in Repertory. And one of the things that she would always repeat is less is more, right? She would say this, less is more. And we say that, we repeat that because it's the truth in theater. But for those of you who haven't seen him perform, he is the manifestation of less is more. So I implore you, if you have a chance to watch any of his shows, do that. But Tito Audie, let me go back for a little bit about being an artist, because Mitchie draws, you draw, and I don't draw at all.
You try.
I try. My kids are better than me. I'm only better than Talia. That's our five-year-old. But when she grows up, I'm sure. But this being an artist, I don't think it started with you, because you are related to a Gemora who's also an artist, but his platform was movies, and this is way back, right?
Yeah.
In fact, if you've seen King Kong, he played the gorilla, right? He played the Is it true? Can you tell us more about that, Tito Audie?
I did my research. You're talking about Charlie Gemora. Charlie Gemora is a grand uncle. He was a cousin of my father, and he migrated to the States very got into making, and he worked with the best people. I mean, you do your research. There was a man called Lon Chaney. He was called the man with 1,000 faces. He was the one who created Phantom of the Opera, Frankenstein. He did all of these amazing makeup. Yeah. So Charlie Gemora joined that roster, and he was the first person who really did all these gorilla roles, because he made the gorilla get up and also the costumes. And he wasn't a very tall man. So tamang-tama lang na parang ape ang kanyang proportion. So he became very, very famous playing apes. But I did my research. He did not do King Kong, because King Kong was a stick figure. It was like, those animated stick figures. You move them, so it was a toy. But he did all the other gorillas in the 1930s into the 40s. He was the one. So he worked with, Mae West. He worked with Bing Crosby,
Abbott and
Bob
Costello.
Hope, Abbott and Costello. He worked with the best, and he became known for that. And then he started to do other creatures. And he did the set of Phantom of the Opera, the first movie. He was the one who created the set for that. So yeah. I mean, the artistic side in our family is Mio Infante is my nephew. Right. He's the son of my sister, and so that's why Mio is also really good at design, and right. Because it's in our blood. Yeah. Hey, you did your research.
It's one thing to discover your gifting, but referring to what Mitchie was saying about passion, right? The passion that you have. I mean, where did you?
Well, I mean, because passion is developed. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily instinctive, but it is something that develops over time. Did you, when you did Oklahoma, and you discovered that you like this, was it something that, I mean, when did you find that you began to get passionate about theater and performing?
To be very honest, doing theater in high school was more like an acceptance thing for me. It's like I discovered that, hey, people like me if I do this. If I sing, if I act, if I dance, then people will like me. So I used it as a way to be accepted. And so I was very self-conscious. So when I told you, I joined because I wanted to prove to myself that I could make it in the professional theater company. So it was all about self. It was all about, me. It's all about, are you going to accept me because I'm talented? Are you going to accept me because it was all that? And it was Zenaida Amador who, that's why her first question, although I didn't understand it at first, was, are you passionate about the theater? Because it's not about talent. Being accomplished in anything you do is only 20% talent. 80% is about dedication, passion, discipline, and just the determination to finish it, right? And that's why it was very crucial for her early on. She wasn't impressed by my American accent coming from IS or my dancing or my singing. She's like, do you have the passion? Because if you don't, just get out of my place. I don't want to deal with egos. I don't want to deal with somebody who's just, here for himself. This is going to require a lot of work, a lot of dedication. And that's why, Zenaida Amador was known to be a terror. I won't repeat what she does, but she used to curse like she would breathe, and she would throw things at people and would manhandle people and would slap them around and throw ashtrays. And I saw her one time grab, the ballet bar. She grabbed the ballet bar and threw it across the room
Wow.
because she was so passionate about letting the rest of us understand that you need to take this thing that I love so much seriously. And I do remember when she finally gave me a lead role. Soon after Chorus Line, and I was a chorus boy, she gave me my first lead role. And it was a comedy. It was a Woody Allen comedy. And I was doing the scene, and I was so self-conscious. I was so self-conscious, and she screamed at me from the audience area, and she says, "If you want to be a good actor, you got to be willing to look stupid." And then I realized that I cannot become an actor until I get rid of the idea that that is the only way I'm going to be accepted. I had to put myself away and focus on the craft and be good at it, and be willing to look stupid, be willing to do everything to be good at what I was doing, and not care about whether people like my performance or not. So you know what? It's kind of like very Christian when you think about it. You want to be good at something, you need to die to self.
True.
Yeah. So it was all about me when I came in, but then I had to die to self to become the character that I was required to create. So, sometimes people ask, how do you become the character, that you're portraying? How do you make it real? And the answer to that is you need to die to self. The more self-conscious you are, then you'll be nervous because you're thinking, oh, will people accept me? Will magugustuhan ba ako? And all of that. So you have all these things, and your performance, your past rejections and all of that, and all of these things come into play, and they stifle you from being able to give life to a character that you're supposed to create. So in a way, although you use your background, you need to die to self to be able to create a full-fledged, realistic character. So so that's how I learned about dying to self and becoming the performer that you are supposed to be.
Audie, I like how you said it's, very, it's like our Christian life, because
it reflects it.
It reflects it, simply because we do have to die to ourselves, because our pasts can try and stop us, our fears. But we have to realize that we put on Christ, so it's not, Jesus told his disciples this. He goes, people aren't rejecting you, they're rejecting me, And so I guess when, life, a lot of people perform, and I guess that's, and they perform because they are trying to be accepted. But, I know one of the things that you've all taught us in theater is that, when you put on the character, you become the character. You're not trying to be the character, you become the character. Yeah. And so, that's what it's like. Instead of performing for the world to accept us, we just need to be who God made us to be, that we have become just as Christ is in the world. So I liked how you said when you were in high school, you did it to be accepted. But then as you went on this journey, you realized it wasn't about, the acceptance, but it was now really grabbing hold of this and making it your own. It became a part of you. It wasn't just characters you were playing. Because I'm sure every character you've played, there's always, is always a part of you. It's a different facet of you, that you may have not discovered before. But you had to step into those shoes to realize, wait, this is me. This is me. And I guess to a certain degree, it's the take it or leave it. If you like me or if you don't, but I'm not doing this for you. This is not about you. This is about me being me, in the sense that of becoming, I'm talking about the Christian perspective, that this is Christ. I'm not perfect because I'm still, there are things that God's still working out in me because of all the self-consciousness and, fears and, rejection, things like that. God's still working that out. But the more that I walk in this journey with him, the more I discover that it's not about people's opinions about me. Right. It's his that matters. And, you were saying how it was Zenaida Albanore who was saying that you are you passionate about this? Because she was passionate about
Yeah.
it. You know, it was so
Yeah.
important to her. And I guess it's also the way God is. You know, he's passionate about his son. He's passionate about us. And the more that we see that, the more we are transformed to be able to show that to the world without all of these inhibitions. So I just, you know, for those that were listening, just, you know, Christian perspective on that as well.
Interesting.
Wonderful.
No? Interesting.
You mentioned about you know, the singing, dancing, acting. In fact,
Triple threat.
you're one of the people know you for is that you are a
Triple threat.
triple threat. You can when it comes to stage, there's nothing you
Can't do.
cannot do.
Yeah.
And when did you discover that you were able to do all of those things? Because some people, they're, let's say, I'm a singer that can move, or I'm a dancer
That
that
can
can
sing.
sing a little, or some people can't act to save themselves, you know. But so when did you discover that you're able to do all these things, and it's like, you know, second nature to you? It's not even something that you struggle with, at least from our point of view.
Yeah, from our point of view, that's true.
I had to work at it. I had to work at it. It didn't come easy. The dancing was born out of, you know,
Need.
just Saturday Night Fever days. So we were always dancing. You know, social life at that time is like after after the week, you'd go to discotheques on the weekend. You'd wear your best clothes and you would practice before you go to a disco, so that with your partner, so that you could show off your moves. You know, I had to work at it. You know, like I could do. There was one of the things that people were so fascinated with was I was what they call a turner. I could do pirouettes and turns and all of that. And I practiced. I would stand in front of a door and I would do these turns, you know, over and over and over until I got it perfect. It took a lot of work, you know. Also, when I was in high school, I did track and field, and my events were long jump, high jump, hurdles. So it was all about these high straddles. And I also took kung fu and taekwondo, and we had to split to be simple and to stretch, and so that you can kick high. So when I joined the chorus line, I was like leaping higher than all these other dancers and doing splits because of my track and field background. So you have to work at it. You know, in the West, whether it's Broadway or West End, all the performers there are triple threat. They take years of dance, ballet, jazz, tap, and then they take a lot of voice lessons and they take a lot of acting lessons. You know why? Because it is a very competitive industry. Right. You know, people come a dime a dozen, and that is the barest requirement that you can act, sing, and dance. For us, dito, pag sinabing triple threat, wow, triple threat siya. But over there, that is the barest standard. If you can't act, sing, and dance, don't even bother auditioning for a musical because you're going to be left behind. Papahiya ka. So I remember when I studied in New York for about 3 years after college, and I took up dance. I took dance, tap, ballet. I studied at the Alvin Ailey Dance School to learn African jazz, you know, and modern ballet. You have to work at it. You know, that didn't come easy.
So just for the people that are watching, there is that natural gifting that God gives us. But it's still important, regardless how gifted you are, you can still improve and get better. You don't just sit on your bums and say, you know what, I can do this.
Yeah, because I'm so gifted, I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, but remember that your gifting is attached to a purpose, not because you can function in your gift that you can just, you know, relax in life. No, there is a purpose. There's a reason why. That, you know, the reason why you were given that. So for those of you who are watching, listening to this, find out your gifting, learn, grow, continue,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad word. Work is not a bad word, improving and learning and continuing to grow. That's a good thing. By the way, we just saying hi to some of the people that are watching. We have people in the church. Of course, Vanessa, Tito Audie,
Hey,
and
Vanessa. Di ba nakakita?
we have Carlo O. I saw him
Hi,
a while ago,
Carlo.
and June Ofrasio watching, some of our theater
June.
friends as well.
And you also have Jeff Arcelia, who has a question for you, Tito Audie. His question is, what is disco?
Yeah, can you please explain
because
that to this generation?
This generation
What is
may
what?
not know
What is disco?
Walang iya ka? Kunwari parang di mo alam.
That's one of the questions here. By the way, if you have,
Okay, I will indulge you. Okay, Jeff? He is younger than me, but I mean, come on. Everybody's seen Saturday Night Fever, even as a movie. Okay, a disco. A disco in the 70s is a, and going into the 80s it's like a club, right? It's a club, and it's got a dance floor in the middle or on the side or wherever it is, and they have a lot of like flashy lights, like you've seen disco balls, right? That the nice
Right.
disco balls, and then and so it's like they got music pumping in all night long, and people in the 70s used to really dress up, to be seen. And you would go in there with your, hindi pa mainit ang Pilipinas noon, so you could actually come in with your
before climate change.
suit, pwede ka magporma, and then, and if you saw the clothes of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, with heels this tall, I used to wear those heels, and then
The heels were high.
and then we would have very tight shirts. They were called the Nick shirts, very tight, and then a lot of like prints, really wild prints. And then we used to have what you call bell bottom
Yeah.
pants. They would flare at the end, so that you couldn't see your shoes. And anyway, so people would go in there to discotheques, and we would dance. You would drink, you would socialize, but more than anything, it was a place to be seen. So you had to be glamorous. You had to be,
As shiny as the mirror ball.
yeah. Yeah, you were like always like showing off, and then and then since disco at that time, dancing at that time was pairing, so it wasn't nowadays. That's how they dance nowadays. By the way, they like but
Stand there by
in our days, you would go to a studio, you would rehearse your dance steps, you would be partnering, you would lift up your partner. Your partner would split. You would turn around and spin your partner. I mean, it was a big. That is discotheque, Jeff. And for those of you who have never experienced it, I'm sorry for your life, because
There's a follow-up question.
He has a follow-up
There's
question
a follow-up
for you, Tito Audie.
question. Sabi ni Jeff, kung hindi pa daw mainit dati, why is it that your buttons are always open?
By the way, this is how we used to wear our buttons, ha? Talagang all the way down like that, oh. Kahit wala kang chest hair, kaya magganyan ka, oh.
There you go. So we're still in the 70s, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously, all these things.
Hey, I will tell you this, right? I turned 60 2 years ago, and I had a 70s party, and because to me the best music is from the 70s. You had disco, you had funk, you had Motown, you had folk singing, you had rock, you had, name it, we had it all. And now my son at age 20 has been tripping on 70s music. And sometimes I hear young people and I'm like, hey, that's music from my time. And they go, no, yes, that's music from our time, because nowadays you guys don't have melody. You don't even have lyrics. They're just like boom, boom, boom. Somebody just rapping there or even talking there. I mean, So anyway, 70s music is the best.
I was
I like 70s
I like
music too.
70s. Privileged enough to have
And
tasted some of it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oy,
we're
June
yes.
Frasio, wag ka mag-deny, June Frasio, you came from that era.
And he said, yes.
Yes.
So he agrees.
And I think he's one of those people who's stuck there.
That is so mean. We love you.
No, I
June.
have a funny kwento about Juno Frasio. I heard that he's part of these Mad Men, right? I mean, they're Raymond Concepcion, si Julian Mendoza, si Chino, and Raul, right? So now they have this show. They have an online show, right? And Juno Frasio is supposed to be part of that group. But guess why he's not on it? Wala siyang Wi-Fi sa bahay.
Oh my God. Welcome to the 21st century, brother Juno Frasio.
Now, Wi-Fi sa bahay, June.
But he will start with dial-up. Audie.
Dial up.
So he'll work his way up there. Okay, so we'll shift a little bit. So you're doing your theater sometime in the 80s all the way to the 90s. What shifted? Somehow something happened that made you seek not the applause, not the lights, because you're seeking for something more. When the lights go down, what is Audie Gemora looking for at that time that you're thinking that life is more than just
The stage.
the stage?
Nako, seryoso na to. Testimony time na ba?
No, I mean, what brought you there?
Okay. Well, right, mga 1983, I finished college. I took up comm arts in LaSalle, and I was at the peak of my career in Repertory Philippines. I was the golden boy of rep. Golden boy means I had the pick of the best roles. I was always being cast as the lead, next to Cocoy Laurel, that is.
I was the opposite.
So I felt like I was on top of the world. And then, like I told you, I was born in a very privileged background, right? I was chauffeur driven. I had everything I needed. And then all of a sudden, after college, my foundations started to fall apart. My mother died. And when my mother died, we had to separate. My father had to divide our properties and because my conjugal yun eh. So for those who know law, if you're conjugal, when the one better half dies, you need to split the other half to the children, and you get certain anyway. But because my mom died, we had to all of a sudden be on our own. My younger brother and I had to leave this house in Dasmariñas. This is where I grew up as a teenager. But when my mom died, all of a sudden we had to be on our own, and we had to leave this house. This house went to me and my younger brother. But because we didn't know how to make money, because we were I was 21. The only way we could support ourselves was by renting this house out. So my mom died. Our wealth was affected. Then my father said, I will help you with one more thing. If you want to take your master's, go to wherever you want to go in the States, take your master's. I will fund that, and that is the last I will help you with. And I turned to Senaida Amador and I said, Tita Bibot, what do you want me to take? And she said, take film, because I want to start doing movies for Repertory. And you don't need to take theater, because everything you need to learn about the theater, I've taught you. Knox. So I took up film in New York. I went to New York University, and I took up filmmaking for my master's. And New York is a big city with it's a white man's land. And here's the golden boy of Repertory Philippines going into this big pond. So all of a sudden, the big fish in a small pond became the small fry in a big pond. Went to college, went to film school. There were so many good kids with great minds to do film, and I realized I wasn't a filmmaker. And so nahirapan ako sa school, and all of a sudden my security in my talent and myself was also eaten up. So that was the third foundation that was lost. First, my parents, somebody I loved. You know, parents are always your foundation, right? Your home. And the second was the home and your wealth. Naapektuhan na. I went abroad and I realized my talent wasn't good enough at that time. I couldn't do theater because wala pang Miss Saigon. This was pre-Miss Saigon days when Asians were never really considered for roles.
Yep.
You know? So there, it's not as if I could go to the theater and do anything there either, right? And then, nangyari pa, that was the time when Ninoy Aquino got killed. This was 1983. And the country was in great turmoil. And my father already called me and said, wag na kayong umuwi. Diyan na lang kayo sa Amerika kasi babagsak tong country na to. He felt like we were going to become communist because he felt like the Marcos regime was going to fall apart because people were already protesting. And so, pati yung country ko, wala na akong bansang uuwian. Di ba? But anyway, flash forward, after a couple more years, I did come back. The revolution did happen. And when I came back here, very insecure, not knowing again kung ano na ako and how I fit in. So you know what I did? I started to try to find my relationships, and I got very heavy into extracurricular activities. And for a while I thought that was great, that partying and having relationships left, right, and center were the way to do it, but it only hurt me more. Yeah. It only hurt me more, and I got heartbroken, and I fell apart, and at one point, some of my friends who had become Christian said, this was all happening in Iloilo. I went back to Iloilo and I got heartbroken there. And then my friend said, come to Manila. They invited me they had become Christian, and they invited me to a service. And that was the first time that I had heard God preached in an entirely different manner. I grew up Catholic, and when I was in New York, and I was like screwing around, right, in New York, you know, I started to look for God. I would go to mass every day, and I would go to confession. And I do remember one particular time in New York when I was at a confessional. And at that time, when you're in a confessional, wala nang screen. It's face to face. And I remember confessing and pouring out my heart and wanting to hear something from the priest. And he looked so bored. And then at one point he says, okay, do 10 Our Fathers, 10 Hail Marys, and 10 Glory Bees. And it felt like, here's an aspirin, go home, you know. And I just felt like there was no relief. There was no answer. It was just like a rote prayer. And so flash forward when I was heartbroken, and I was back to this church. And it was the first time that I had heard that God was a personal God. God knew me personally. God loved me. God knows my pain. God wants to be part of my life. God can change my life. God will be the constant. And that was to me the most attractive of all the propositions, because
wow,
I had lost everything. And I wanted a constant. I wanted something that I could latch on that would be permanent. And that proposition of an everlasting, forever God that was going to be constant no matter what I was or what I was struggling with was a really great again, I went to that church. They were like, I did everything that church told me to do, and I just went in there because I was desperate and accepted the Lord, and I didn't understand what that was all about. And I think that was, yeah, and we can go back to that later on, how important it is that you don't force people to get into Christianity, because it's not about the claim to say, hey, I converted him, it is really, and also don't overpromise Christianity, because it was so overpromised to me that I had all these expectations about Christianity. And when it was great the first few months when you have your honeymoon, and it's really true, God really does just gives you everything you need. But when your actual walk happens and the struggles begin, and you realize there is no quick pill, and that Christianity is a process, sanctification is a process, and you still who you are, and you still struggle with everything that you are, and all the baggage that you brought in from your past doesn't just go away because you love God, or because you go attend service, or you raise your hands and say praise the Lord, and act like everybody else in church, doesn't make all of that go away. My biggest struggle as a young Christian was that being an actor, we are trained as actors to go for the truth. If you don't feel the truth, you're faking it, right?
Right.
And a good actor knows when he is faking it, and he will always look for the truth. And you give a good performance when on that stage or in front of that camera, you are truthful. What you're creating on that stage or in front of that camera is as real as you can get it, and then you're on. You're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a Christian, I've struggled so much with the fact that I couldn't see God, I couldn't audibly hear God, I couldn't physically feel God. Yeah, I was tactile, sensual person being an actor, and all of a sudden I was holding on to a God that I could not feel, sense, and so I really, 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 really struggled for many years. But over those years, through all my troubles, God always came too, experientially. It's not the praise and worship or the thrillings of a church that makes me love God. It is having experienced Him. When you pray and God manifests in your life, and there's a movement. When there's an emptiness in you, although you don't feel Him, but He addresses it, and then all of a sudden there's something. When I've been sick and He's healed me so many times, I've had so many heartaches, and He filled that void. Those were the real things. The whole experience of doing Joseph the Dreamer, the whole experience of people like you, Alvin and Mitch, whose lives I see before me changing. That's experiential. That to me is relatable and believable. And that is why I so believe in God. Never mind my struggles, never mind when I have, sometimes philosophical struggles with what Christianity teaches. One thing I can never deny is that God is real to me. Jesus is real to me. So, yun. Ang haba ng kwento ko. You just asked.
It's good.
Yeah.
People. I'm sure there are people that need to hear, because it's still telling a story is still the most powerful thing that we have. And in fact, when you tell and this is just, just studying. When you say, when you preach the gospel, of course it is in the context of what the scripture says, but you back it up with life experience, because
Mm.
gospel has to be something that is real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for you
Experiential.
telling your story, nobody can refute your testimony. Nobody
true.
can refute your story, because this is what you went through. It's up, you're not in control of how people will respond to it, but the way you're presenting how God manifested to you,
Yeah.
maybe people don't understand that totally, but they will sense it and they will feel it and they will know the truth that you're speaking about. And let that be a challenge. You said something, Tito, it's very interesting, and I just want to capitalize on that for now, because you said don't oversell Christianity. I like that, because I guess preachers and uh, people who are maybe overzealous in the wrong context can oversell Christian. I don't think you can oversell Christ,
Yeah.
but you can oversell Christianity, because those are very different things.
True.
Christ is the person. We always want to lead people, not just the experience, but to sense that presence. And
To
that
experience
yeah,
the person.
the person,
Yeah.
more than just seeking the power. And these are some of the things that we espouse and we believe. And I think there are people that maybe are going through some of what you went through, that there's that, like, this void, this
Emptiness.
suddenly the rug has been pulled under them, and what they used to stand upon suddenly is not there, and you're looking for a fix,
Looking for stability.
for stability. And the danger of just saying Christianity is the answer to everything,
Yeah.
that's over promising something without substance. But
Yeah.
Jesus himself said, in this life you will have trials and
Tribulations.
tribulation
Yeah.
and all these things, but
Be a good
be of good cheer. I've overcome it. And for those people that are watching, we don't know if we will totally understand what Jesus went through on the cross, but at the very least, understand that the God who created us is not detached from pain,
It's true.
but went through pain like us. And somehow that should give us comfort, because he understands the pain that we all go through. And that's something that would relate, and that would speak. That's why I like, you mentioned truth. Truth is very big for a performer, for an actor. And I like the fact that Jesus is truth, and you sense it, you feel it, not when there are people around, not when there's a congregation saying amen. It's just in the quietness of your time alone with him, sense truth. And these are the things that actually carry weight and propel you to the next challenge or next movement. And I thank you for sharing what you said,
Yeah.
Audie. Okay, so now trumpets is birth, right?
So is trumpet's birth within this time, Tito Audie?
How did that happen?
Okay, so I accepted the Lord, and then that barkada of mine, those were Mari and Enchang Kaimo, Luna, Inoshan. I hope Luna's watching. And then eventually Freddie. We were the magkabarkada dati, taga-repertory, and then we all, like a bunch of dominoes, became born again. And we were going to a church called Word for the World in a theater called Resolve.
Yep.
And one of the guys there, and I always will credit him for it, his name is Don Di Kema, used to watch Repertory Philippines. So he approached me and Freddie one day and he said, Freddie, Audie, why don't you guys do something that's Christian but has, the kind of stuff you used to do in rep, like a nice musical, comedy, I mean, nice props, because in those days, ang Christian entertainment were kung Katoliko ka, ang tawag doon, sinakulo. You know how they, sinakulo, they portray every Holy Week, di ba? Or Moriones, I mean, it was very, very hyper religious, and so, and then sa evangelical naman, mga kantata, cantata, you have a choir singing, and it was all just so stiff. And so he says, well, why don't you create something that's like a Broadway show, and he gave Freddie a recording of Carmen. And the recording was, I don't know if you know this, Mitch, it was called His Way is Life. His Way is Life. And then Freddie took the cassette pa no, cassette.
So Jeff has a question. It's cassette.
Hindi na ako maniniwala. Anyway, so he took it home, and then after about a week or so, he says, "You know what? I'm going to write my own thing." He junked the Carmen recording, and he started to write his own script. And then Freddie at that time was the #1 concert director. And so he knew all these big artists. And so he called Gary V, he called Audie, he called Rayanne, he called Bob Serrano of the Tux. And he asked all these people to write music to lyrics that he did. And he was doing a musical playing with the names of biblical characters. And that's how First Name was born. And this was in 1988. And he got Terry Aldeguer of the Aldeguer Sisters to choreograph. So it wasn't a very, ang sayawan sa kantata, no? May mga tamburin pa. Ganyan.
Banners.
May banners. Yeah. Tapos yung skirt hanggang ankle. So,
yes.
Oh, yun. So that was the kind would put and a bit of hip hop and so it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing. Gary V's music. That's where Could You Be Messiah came from.
Wow.
And it was a hilarious play, but at the same time, it would hit you with a biblical truth, and you didn't know what hit you. You're just crying. You're laughing 1 minute, and then all of a sudden, at the very center of you, you're hit where it counts, and all of a sudden, you're saying, Jesus is his first name and the last, So yeah, we were onto something new. And the following year, Freddie did another project called Joseph the Dreamer in Cebu. And that became a major hit. And so after these two plays, these two musicals that were done by Freddie, Enchang and Maricamo just said, you know what? It's about time we organize. Why don't we? I think we have a calling. Let's put up a Christian theater company, and that's how Trumpets was born. Yeah, that was in 1991. That's when we were born, and so the vision for Trumpets was to be to use the arts as a way to bring people close to God, to use the arts for the Great Commission. And I say arts, not necessarily theater, kasi pwede din siyang video, pwede din siyang movie, pwede din siyang... so that's how Trumpets was born, 1991.
I'm first year high school, I think, at that time.
I First Name, I love First Name. It was the first show I'd ever done, but I recorded the cassette tape.
Oh.
I was only about 13 years old. And I remember Tito Freddie allowing me to be part of that. That's why I love First Name. It's one of my favorite Trumpets productions.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really does. I mean, I think when you hear First Name, which is, the song, you can't help but just find yourself, well, if not literally, but in your heart, on your knees, before God, because Jesus is the first name and the last.
Right.
And going through all of the names, it's not, they're not coincidences, very intentional with every name that was named. So that for me, first name holds a very special place in my heart. Apart, of course, Joseph the Dreamer as well, because I met Alvin. So,
Speaking
I remember Mitch, I don't know specifically when, pero parati ko naalala tong magandang mestiza na to. She was very young. She was, like you said, you were probably 13, and I at that time you were so young. But constantly Mitch would show up at auditions, and then finally you were cast. I don't remember whether it was Joseph or if it was So David.
No, it was Joseph, because I was in school, and my schedule in school, because I wasn't in the international school, and because I couldn't join anything like Play Shop, it was, there's always something until 1999, and that's where I ended up doing Play Shop, and I was in your class, Tito Audie. We did the Beatles review.
Oh, that was a great batch. It was a really good batch.
It was so much fun.
It's the best batch.
Yeah. Andun si Between, si Lynn Sherman, you remember?
Annalyn, Bantog,
By the way, giving a shout out to Pastor Giselle and Mylene. They said, first name, where our love story was born.
That's why Audie is our ninong.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Giselle and Mylene also met at Trumpets. Mylene, parang same story. Mylene came from Repertory Philippines. She was also a regular there. And then I think nag-racket kami one time. We did a racket where we did some Broadway songs, and I don't know how Mylene ended up joining us, but Mylene ended up joining us. It was with Pia Lusuriaga pa. Pia Vicente. And yun, then nagkakilala sila ni Giselle, and sasabihin ko ba? So, and then one day, nagbabarkada kami, and then, they know naman this story, and then one day, parang wala naman nangyayari sa kanilang dalawa, we didn't suspect anything, and so our barkada went to Mega Mall, because the place to go at that time was Mega Mall, and we went to watch a movie. We all went as a barkada, and then we came out, and then they came out of another movie house.
Ooh.
Giselle and my. So we caught them dating. Meron na palang kaganapan. There was already something abuzz.
There you go.
One thing I'm so proud about, guys, is that there are so many love stories that came out of Trumpets.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was going to say, people should. Okay, so guys, if you want to find the person, you join Trumpets.
Enroll in Play Shop.
Jeff Artilia and Chris.
That's true.
Trumpets babies. Carla Guevara and
yes.
And
Chini and
Kevin.
And Kevin. David and Vanessa.
That's true. So guys, wait. I think that's a good marketing tool that you can use, Tito Audie. If you want to find your special someone,
enroll in theater. In Trumpets Play Shop.
There you go.
There you go.
We can use that. We can use that.
Lanny, we're endorsing Trumpets Play Shop right now.
I think you'll have a bunch of New Life the Fourth people enrolling this.
Ikaw ba ay nalulungkot? Join the Trumpets Play Shop.
Whatever works, Tito Audie, whatever works. Pointing comes from the head down, right? So we'll use that. So, okay, let's go back to, so when Trumpets opened, that just didn't open another theater group.
Yeah.
It opened many avenues for different people to get to know God and discover their call. Case in point for us, But what were the doors that started opening for you since you opened trumpets? Because today you wear many hats today.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you're the president
Trumpets.
of trumpets, and you, also the theater group. Well, you work.
Yeah, stages.
Stages.
So, by the way, ang president na natin, by the way, Alvin was a president of trumpets at one point. And then now it's Butch Jimenez, who I have. Butch Jimenez is my partner, hindi in crime, in glory.
In life. In glory.
Yeah, Butch, kung walang Butch Jimenez, walang trumpets, maniwala kayo dyan. And he was really the backbone. You know, a lot of us were creative people with crazy ideas and crazy emotions. What poor Butch had to go through with all these emotional actors, you know, falling apart and everything. But he was the steady Eddie, you know. So he's the trumpets president right now and doing a great job. No, you know what? My greatest joy, Alvin and Mitch, about trumpets is when you start pala something that God made you do, you will not realize how impactful it is to people and how far-reaching it will be, and that it is generational. You just have no idea.
Yeah.
One now, and when you look back and you see how many people have met the Lord through trumpets, how many people have found their talent in trumpets, how many people had their start in trumpets, how many couples got together through trumpets, how many saved souls because of trumpets, how many changed lives because of trumpets.
Yeah.
I have people coming to me saying, you know, I was a play shopper and now mother na siya, may mga anak na siya. You are the same. Nothing gives me more fulfillment than seeing all of that, because it is a testimony that God had intended something greater than anything we have ever imagined, and that to me is the greatest. That to me is the greatest. And you know, we were just a channel and we had a part to play with it, but it pretty much happened on its own, and that's why, you know, God's behind this thing. And I'm so glad trumpets has been gone for a while. There was a time when, I see a lot of us who started trumpets got busy with our own lives, right? I mean, you know, when you're young and you have a lot of time, you can focus on ministry. You can attest to this, Alvin. But the older you are and you're called to other things, it's like a ripple. I describe it. You throw a pebble in the water and it will ripple. And the longer it takes, the far-reaching it becomes. And at one point in your life, you're already reaching further. So my initial pebble as an artist has long gone. I still enjoy performing, but that is no longer where my center emanates. It is already at the far-reaching end of this thing that rippled, right? So when I see the industry coming together, when I see generations growing out of this dream, this vision, that is what fulfills me to no end. And I'm just really greatly satisfied, you know, how far it's gone. And I wonder where the next generation will take it. So we rested for a while, but now Butch is back and he's trying to now get the younger generation to come in, and the young generation have their own vision. And it's exciting to hear what they're seeing. And this is going to go way, way beyond us. And that's the great thing.
So right now, Audie Gemora's influence is much bigger than where you started in trumpets or even repertory, and you know it's far-reaching now, and in the many different areas, even education. You are the entertainment's head in Soler and all of these things. How is Audie Gemora shining his light in these areas right now? If you can share that.
Oh, by the way, I also put up a school. It's called the School of Academics and Arts, TISA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a birth out of Play Shop, because Play Shop is a summer program, and I was thinking parang kulang. Why don't we just really teach the arts to the schools? I mean, like a regular academic school, and so I started this about 6 years ago. How am I in all these endeavors? Gusto ko na mag-retire.
How are you because you are doing so much, how are you allowing yourself to shine, where I'm like thinking,
because you've expanded, it's no
your
longer
sphere is no more
just
theater,
it's
just
it's
theater.
not just trumpets or theater, but whatever God has done in your life, how do you see it being reflected now in the different areas you
Right.
are involved in?
In the school, in Solaire,
Well, I'm just really hoping that the values that that I formed as I evolved as an artist is reflected in everything that I do. I just wanted to say that, there also, when I was really at the helm of trumpets, I have to admit, and this is an interesting topic that we can talk about if we have time, but there was a period when I was head of trumpets when I had an identity crisis, because being a head of a Christian theater company lay heavy on my shoulders. There was a lot of responsibility, spiritual responsibility. I would have people coming in and say, you know what, you can never do Sweeney Todd because you're a head of a Christian theater company, and there was a big struggle, I was a big struggle for me. And the time I left trumpets in around about 2005, Alvin, and that's when Alvin took over, was a great period for me to find myself again and realize what my design really is. Yes, I am Christian, and Jesus is my Lord and Savior, but I was designed to be an artist, and an artist reflects life, and an artist creates art, and that is at the very core of me. I think, or maybe the dreamer, when I was in some church and I was on stage and there was a podium right next to it, and then Mari says, Audie. I said, what? Go there. And so I stood behind the podium, and he said, bagay, I can see you're going to be a pastor. And I'm like, no. And so that was my point, that when I had that respite from trumpets, I had to find myself again and realize, you know what, I'm an artist. God made me this way, and that is what I'm going to do for so long as I live, create art. If I'm going to talk about God, it will be through my art. Jaime Del Mundo said very well that if you're Christian, you can't help but have a Christian point of view, no matter what you create. So that sort of freed me up now to, I can do roles. So I can do a role that may look like it's really against the Christian principles, but at the end of the day, what is the message I want to deliver, right? That is what is important, not the facade, or not the surface that I'm portraying. An artist should be able to speak truth in every form, so yeah. And then also during that respite, finding myself as an artist again, and that sort of freed me up. So now I'm really comfortable playing any role, and I feel that my testimony as a Christian is in the excellence of the work that I do. I don't always have to have, hey, this is a Christian role, oh, this is a Christian play. I will not fulfill my calling unless I do a Christian play. So I can play a murderer, and I can play a racist, and I can play a gay character, and I still am Christian. You know what I'm saying? so yeah, that period really freed me up, to practice my art, knowing that's what I was designed to do. And another thing that I really, really enjoyed during my respite away from trumpets was raising my son Richard, because for the longest time, ang anak ko was trumpets. Parang I left trumpets when it was 15 years old. It was like a teenager, and I had to give my teenage child to Alvin and let him take care of the child. And God gave me a child, and I physically, emotionally, spiritually became a dad, and it is the greatest role. And you know that as parents, it is the greatest.
Yeah.
True.
Change. And that again is about God's design and plan, and that to me is experiential. When I look at my son, I'm like, how can I not believe in God? Come on.
Yes.
How can I not? How can I not? So, yeah. So I that's what I'm saying. I guess I hope that everything that I touch is a reflection of my being an artist and my belief in Jesus Christ. And that's it, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes. You read the Old Testament, and there are certain things that you see the prophets doing that for people it looks questionable, but really they're portraying a role, and they're demonstrating something that God asked them to do. And so, but just occurred to me, Tito Audie, while God gave us that opportunity, that season, it was a short season, that somewhere around 2005, that I took over as the leadership in trumpets, while things were, you were going through a crossroads. It's very interesting, because right after that, you guys came back, and I went through my crossroad, and it also led me to where I am right now.
Yeah.
And do I think about theater? Absolutely. Do I still remember in my head what it feels like to lie down on an empty stage with no audience and just looking at the lights? Absolutely. I still remember the smell of the hotness of the lights. I still remember that, and the sound of echo while people are cleaning. And I just thought forever that would be my part, but I didn't know that at the end of the day, what I'm doing is setting the stage for the king.
Yeah.
Because the final ovation will not be my bow, but it will be his. And speaking of you mentioned about retirement. What would the final bow look like, Tito Audie?
Okay, what I mean by retirement is I don't have to go to office every day, but like waking up and staying in the office till it's time to go home,
But of course, just in case your bosses are listening, you enjoy these things. You love it.
No, my bosses know that they hired me because I'm an artist, and I'm there to create art, and they give me a lot of leeway to do that. No, my idea of retirement is to be able to continue creating art, but doing it in my own time. Working with young people, working with the industry. I want to see trumpets grow even more.
Yeah.
I want to see my school grow even more. Pero arts related talaga, Alvin and Mitch, because that's my calling. That's my design. Like I said, that was my testimony from the very beginning. Nung bata pa ako, in Iloilo, God already knew the design. And he knew, and that's why, when I put up my school, the goal is that no other child will ever have to be lost in finding what he was designed to be. My school is designed so that if there's a 3-year-old who is artistic or whatever, or athletic, he will find his talent early on. And he won't get stuck following the traditional, this is the way you're going to study and be measured. You're going to be measured by grades. You're going to be measured by certain, no. What are we designed to be? And that is what you have to usher the child to become. Because then he'll find what God designed him to be, and he will create do glorious things because that is God's design, right? I
Wonderful.
think there's nothing more tragic than living a life and finding out that's not what you were supposed to do.
Yep. Yep.
Agreed.
And one of the
Agreed.
things that we speak and we just share with people is that we don't train our kids so that they can get good jobs
Later on.
later on. That's not the end goal. There has to be something greater than that, where they feel like
They're called.
if you're called to be
Oh.
in the IT, you can be artistic within the sphere that you are influencing.
Well, I mean, we
Creative,
believe.
yeah.
Well, I believe this. I think everybody's artistic, just in different ways.
Yes.
You know, I mean, because when you think about somebody who's artistic, you either think of somebody who can paint or draw or sing or dance, but everybody's artistic because God is creative,
Absolutely.
and he made us like him. So, but it's now finding, like Tito Audie was saying, finding your fit. Maybe that would be the best place where things click into place, and that this is your creative outlet.
There was a Trumpet's tagline that we used before: "Find your light."
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember
Play shop.
because we were heavily involved in play shop and trumpets before, and it's the heart of that tagline. I think you came up with it. I don't even remember who, but
Yeah.
use play shop as a jump off point, because we understand that not everyone who goes through play shop will end up in theater.
It's true.
But it's a way for them to discover themselves and
Yeah.
lose inhibitions so that they can eventually pursue the leanings that they have in their hearts. So
To tap into their potential.
to tap into
in
the
in
potential.
a different way.
so that's amazing, and our desire. I mean, I'm just speaking for Tito Audie here, is really at the end of the day, we want our light to shine,
Yes.
so that in some way, one way or the other, no matter how small that light is or big that light is, or how big the stage is, or
How
whatever,
small,
how
yeah.
small it is, but shine the light that is shining in our hearts back and giving back the glory to God. That's why at the end of a trumpet show, when we do our bows,
We
the
always
final
find
act is not thank you for the applause. The
Yeah,
final
so it-
act, giving it back to God.
Yeah.
And Tito Audie, it's been an hour and 40
An hour,
40
40
minutes, and it
minutes.
just went by so quickly. And I just want to open it up for some people who might have like questions. You can ask Tito Audie. Don't ask about technical things right now because we don't have time to give a workshop. But while you're thinking about some questions,
Yeah.
I have some rapid fire questions, and I would like you to answer as quickly as possible. Top
Top the top of your head, Tito.
right? Favorite food.
Favorite
Favorite
food.
food?
Yeah.
Pasta?
Okay. Favorite color.
Brown.
What is your go-to attire?
Shorts!
There you go. There's no more belt bag. It's coming back, It's coming back.
I never had a belt bag. Hoy!
Tito Audie, I've seen you with a belt bag.
What?
In cycling shorts.
Exactly.
Okay. What's your favorite pet, if you have a pet?
Dog.
Okay. Vacation spot.
My son has a tarantula, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Not
and
excited about that.
we call him quarantine Tarantino.
Oh my God. That is
Love
very
it.
funny.
Love that.
Now, that is a bit of theatrics. Okay. Vacation spot. Favorite vacation spot.
Somewhere cold, mountain.
Okay. I relax by doing blank.
FB.
Okay.
Okay.
That's sometimes that's not
It's
relaxing.
very stressful sometimes.
It's my way to relax. I'm FB all the time.
Most daring thing I want to try. If you can try something daring, what would it be?
Skydive?
Nothing.
I don't know. Skydive,
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
Okay. I'm absolutely terrified of blank. Say that
Again,
Can you
again.
say that again?
I am absolutely terrified of
Blank.
blank.
Snakes.
Okay.
Okay. Good thing not spider. I
Hindi.
cannot live without
Blank.
Cannot
I
live.
can't. Yeah, I
Without-
cannot live without blank.
My son.
Okay,
Okay.
good answer. Good answer. If I can have a superpower, I would choose blank.
Make all the bad people vanish.
Okay, Nick.
Who
Oh, Thanos.
who determines who is bad? Okay, anyway. Most memorable role.
Joseph.
Come
Wow.
on.
Most
By the
regrettable
way,
role.
Alvin played Joseph the Dreamer. Also,
There you go.
I actually got to play both your wives. Awesome.
imagine that.
Most regrettable role.
Meron ba?
Awesome.
Wala akong regrettable role.
Oh,
Everything
wonderful.
is great. Yeah.
What about dream role?
Yeah. What's your
A
dream
role
role?
that
Yeah.
I haven't done yet. That you'd like to do.
Phantom?
Yeah.
Which part?
I'm too old to play
Raul.
Raul or
Okay. I don't know if you can answer this, but what is your favorite line or lyric that you've done? The most memorable line or lyric?
Siyempre,
This is a challenge.
siyempre sabi ko, praise his name and see it happen. May choreo pa, oh. Oh.
There you go. That is not the newest choreo,
No,
by
that's
the way.
not.
That is their choreo.
Si Sam Concepcion is like, we
No.
can retire now. We can retire. Sam is just,
Yeah. I would have liked to perform with any performer
person
that
you
you
wanted to
would have
perform
liked to
with.
perform with.
Yeah. Who would you love to share the stage with?
Freddie.
Past or
Freddie
okay.
Santos.
Wow.
As
You
your
know-
father or
Holy Ghost na siya, Holy Ghost. Because he's played God already, di ba? Freddie's always for those of who don't know, I acted with Freddie early on in Repertory Philippines. He is a hilarious comedian. And I actually had a conversation with Jaime, and I said, if we could do a play where I could pull Freddie in and he's acting, I would love to do that. Because Freddie right now is in a wheelchair. So we actually talked about a particular role na pwede siyang i-wheel in, pwede pa.
pwede pa. Okay. If you can choose only one, what would you choose? Sing, act, or
Or
dance?
To express yourself.
Dance.
Wow.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, you know
You're
what? I
moving.
get so fascinated with dancers. I get so fascinated with ballet dancers and what they can do with their bodies. And it is just an art form that is so short. Your lifespan as a dancer is probably about 15 years maximum, and then you deteriorate at age 30. In your 30s, parang ano ka na, like boxers, you retire already. So I used to think, okay, if I ever went to heaven and had a glorified body, I did ask myself, that's why ang bilis ng sagot ko eh, which of these things would I do? I said, I would just love to dance and never get tired.
Wow.
And do amazing things with your body.
Okay.
Flip and
Yeah.
flip
That's
and
true.
somersault, and twirl and
Nothing
Yeah.
that you can't.
As long as you don't try any of that right now, because we want you safe.
pwede.
Okay. If you could meet anyone in history except Jesus, who would it be?
That's tough. That's tough. C.S. Lewis?
Local.
C.S. Lewis.
That's good.
Nice.
We met his
His stepson.
stepson, right?
Douglas Gresham.
Yeah. If I was not an artist, I would have liked to be blank.
A millionaire. A billionaire. You know why? I have an explanation. It's not about money. The arts is always so hard up when it comes to getting funding, and sometimes ang hirap paghanap ng sponsor. And I always say, Lord, bakit hindi mo ako ginawang bilyonaryo? If you made me a billionaire, my company will sponsor all the productions. All. It will be on all the productions. So can you imagine?
So when you become a billionaire, for sure I will put up a theater company.
Diba? Oh.
Yes. Okay. What is your go-to verse?
Sorry?
Your go-to verse, the verse that you go to all the time, or life verse.
It's not a verse, it's a psalm. It is my psalm, and I always, kasi I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, I always think I'm going to get sick. Psalm 91 is my safe to go to. I mean, even through this pandemic, the first thing I did was everybody Psalm 91. I read it online. I posted it on Facebook. I said, guys, you need to hold on to this promise. Yeah, fall under his wing, right? And be safe.
Yeah.
Last question. I would like to be remembered as blank.
A good dad.
Good dad.
There you go.
Love that.
At the end of the day, it's not about being an artist, but about a relationship.
Yeah.
Between the father and the son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Well, certainly, Tito Audie, I've learned something that I've known you for years, but there are certain things here that, just discovering about you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's see if we have some questions. Do we have questions?
Have two, Tito Audie. There is a question is, I'm a teacher of theater arts in senior high school. Am I only limited to with musicals that are Christian-like, or is it okay to go beyond that, knowing that I'm a church youth leader?
Again, I go back to what Jaime Del Mundo, another very accomplished director, and I have discussed many times that if you're Christian and you take on any material, you can't help but give a Christian perspective to that material. No, I would think you're not limited. One of the big struggles when I was heading trumpets was that after Freddie created First Name and Joseph the Dreamer, we were hard pressed to find other materials. Then later on, Jaime Del Mundo and Luna came up with the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and Little Mermaid and all of that. But when we looked at for material, Christian material, even in the US, there were none. So we had to create our own material because we didn't want anything that's too preachy. I think one reason why Trumpets was so successful and continues to be successful is it speaks to the audiences of today. It is not preachy. You can't force people to listen to the word of God, but you can get them to come watch a show that's entertaining and then put the message of God in there. So it's and so we were looking for material, and at one point I was looking, and konti lang talaga yung mga characters sa Bible na pwede mong gamitin na full ang story, may beginning, middle, and an end. A lot of the characters in the Bible are just like, have short, they appear and then there's no real follow through in the story. So if you just get stuck there, you're going to be very limited. I mean, again, we're back to God made us very creative. We have to come up with many ways what did Jesus do? He used the parables all the time. There was nothing, there was nothing scriptural about what he taught. He was using parables, stories, to illustrate a truth. And so
Right.
you keep that in mind. No, you don't have to get stuck with cantatas. You can create your own story, base it on somebody's story, and put music. And Filipinos are so creative. Especially the kids nowadays, they grab a guitar, create music. It's so funny because Freddie and I had talked about bringing back So David, but this time around we want to ask like the young people who are like into this indie acts and spoken word and acoustic music and put together So David in a new form, in the form that the kids are accustomed to now. There's so much source of inspiration out there that you don't have to get stuck with churchy stuff. And if you certainly want to reach out to other people outside of your church and you don't really need to preach to the choir, out to people who don't know the Lord, then you need to speak their language. You need to speak into their stories, their truths, in the language that they know. Sometimes we're so fixated with the language that we are accustomed to, what church people are comfortable hearing. And that's not the language of what the people who speak in the streets. So hindi sila makarelate. Masyadong, it goes over their heads. Anointing is in your intention. It's not in the form.
Right. So what do you do to get inspired? What helps you get inspiration? I just kind of tweak the question.
Especially if you find yourself like getting tired
or dry or whatever.
Dry in your craft, yeah.
Well, again, kung artist ka, you need to always soak it in. Artists are we reflect life, so you cannot reflect life if you're not experiencing or seeing it. So you just soak in. When I feel like I have no inspiration, I start watching shows. Now everything's accessible on Netflix or on video or YouTube. I've seen so many great productions coming out of the National Theatre in England, and Jaime Del Mundo keeps bringing me stuff to watch. I sometimes when I'm really dry, I just look at magazines, look at visual art, go to a museum, just soak it in, talk to people, sit in the park. I don't know, surround yourself with beauty. I mean, you got to soak it in so that you can put out. Kung nagda-dry ka, that means wala kang stimulation walang pumapasok.
That's right. That's right. In fact, before just answering the question of before, and this is something that I've observed of Tito Audie, Tito Jaime, and all of these people. They don't just talk about it, at platforms like this. This is actually a practice, And just before we went online, they were having, they were talking shop, talk shop. That's something I've heard for the first time in Play Shop, and you were the one who mentioned it. Get together and talk about, stir things up, stir something. Inspiration sometimes does not fall from the sky and hit you and whatever. It's just
that's why I like what you said, Tito Audie, about like you immerse yourself in life, because sometimes people just check out of life and they're wondering why I'm so dry, why am I no longer inspired. It's because they're not enjoying life anymore. They're not taking time to, like you said, just look at the beauty around you. We can get so caught up with everything that's happening that's wrong that we actually fail to see the beauty that is around us, and sometimes you really do physically need to get away. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying?
No, what I was saying, it's not also just beauty, huh? It's really experiencing life. Sometimes you can, by going to, the problem with us Christians sometimes is we get so comfortable with our life. Nothing terrible happens to us most of the time because we're kind of protected by the Lord and we're provided for and everything. So we're sort of like in a nice bubble. Where we speak the same way, we think the same way. We become homogeneous at one point, and we're not really experiencing life. We're not really getting out there and finding out what people are struggling with, what people are suffering from. that's what I mean by soaking also, not just in beauty, but hearing stories, getting out there, talking to people, seeing life, watching other points of view, which may not be Christian, but
True.
being exposed to it shows you where the world is, and you know now how you're going to address and speak to that world. But you can't if you're cloistered in
Right.
your comfort zone, where tayo lang nagkakaintindihan, so
Good
yeah.
point. And notice that Jesus did not live a monastic life. He
That's
didn't
true.
No.
seclude himself
He was out among the people.
outside and close the outside world. No, he immersed himself.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
allowed people to touch him, but he released the truth from within.
Yeah.
And so,
And changed the
Christianity
situations,
is not supposed to be lived in a bubble. That's not how it's
Absolutely.
designed. We train people to, we come on a Sunday, but your life outside, you have more days outside the church than inside. So it is where it's needed and manifested, diba?
I guess also though, when you immerse yourself in life and you get to know what's happening in the world around you, that maybe people that don't have a great life. The thing is though, we do carry hope. So if we realize that we are a carrier of hope in the midst of the most dire of situations, it's not that we don't understand them, it's that we're trying to help them see that there is more to their life than what they're living right now. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things I like about theater is that it gives you a perspective. I guess it doesn't really matter the show that you're watching. It just gives you a perspective on life that you may not have had because maybe you are in a bubble or you're focused on something something in your life all the time that you don't see beyond that. But theater gives you those different angles, those different perspectives, different characters, different walks of life that you can possibly relate to and see
Right.
that stories are being written all the time. Your story is being written, and the end. I mean, in Christ, our end is determined, but getting there, your end can change because there can be a shift in your story. If you're going down one path and you think there's no hope, there can be a shift in your story that brings you into a place of hope, a place where you don't feel lost anymore, a place where you belong or you're accepted. And I mean, that's
Right.
just what I'm saying about, being immersed in life and seeing the other things, other aspects of life.
Wow.
There's some other questions. There was a question, Tito Audie, about if you weren't, do you prefer acting over anything else? Have you done script writing? I know you've directed shows, but
Is there any other
avenues of expression
within the the theater realm or artistic realm that you'd like to try?
Yeah, well, I'm not really a writer, but I was talking to Jaime kanina, and I said, you know what, I want to challenge myself to write something like, I don't know. I said maybe I'll start with something really simple, like a modern day fairy tale or something, something that has to do with fantasy. A lot of the great Christian writers use allegory to get some
Yeah.
truths out. So I thought that might be interesting. And I used to draw, so I thought maybe what if I draw and then illustrate the story? So it's really simple.
That's nice.
Yeah, I studied film, but I've never directed film, so I still want to do that before my life ends. I want to be able to do direct one film. Yeah.
Wow. Of course, hopefully this will not be the last time we hear Tito Audie in this platform.
That's right.
Because it's been 2 hours, and we thank you, Tito Audie, for making yourself available. I thoroughly enjoyed
Thanks,
this
Tito
talk.
Audie.
Whether or
Thank
not people were watching, whatever, I would, I like this back and forth and learning things from you as well. So,
It was nice.
is there anything that you want to, before we do our curtain call?
Is there something
is
you'd
there
like to leave
you'd like
with,
to
our,
leave with
viewers?
our viewers?
Well, I just want thank you for inviting me over. More than anything, I wanted to see the two of you. So it was a nice connection, and wala lang. I just hope everybody everybody stay safe. Please follow the safety protocols, guys. Come on, don't test your faith. Don't test God and get out there and expect God to save you. Okay, just stay safe and put on masks, and let's pray that this will be over soon.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Agreed. Tito Audie, are you still there?
Yeah, he said.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. So,
As we close, do you mind if we pray for you, Tito Audie?
please.
And then for those who are joining us, just agree with us. Father, in the name of Jesus, just thank you for the life of Tito Audie.
Yeah.
We dearly call him Tito Audie, and truly his life is shining,
Thank you, Lord.
and only eternity will be able to judge how many lives have been touched through him.
Yeah.
And there are those that know him and know that because we have crossed path, he's made an impact
Yeah.
in our lives. And this is what I speak over you, that you have not yet seen your final act.
That's right.
There are still scenes that need to be revealed, and I pray that at the right on cue you will be able to step in, perhaps in a role that you didn't expect. But I pray that when the time comes, whatever wisdom you need, whatever gifting and crafts you need to operate in, you'll be able to do that with great confidence that he who started a good work in
Right.
you is able to finish it.
Amen.
And you will discover that it may not be the wealth that we all dream about, but you can say at the end of the day that you're a very wealthy man in many different aspects. So I pray the peace of God over you. I pray that he protects you with good health, not just in your body, but in your soul, in your mind, in your emotions, in your relationships. And may you grow more and more, grow deeper as you go higher in him.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yeah, Tito Audie, I had a picture of you on a stage. The stage is completely bare. You're in the middle of the stage, and there's this amazing light that's shining on you. And I hear applause, but I hear one person clapping. And this is what I hear. I hear God saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Okay. So I see you just standing there and you're looking up into the light, but I hear the clapping and I hear him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So I'm just releasing that to you.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you. Love you guys.
We love you too, Tito Audie. And we'll see you soon. I'm sure we'll see you, not online. We'll get to see you in person soon.
I just want to read what Kuya Butch said here. Notice, Kuya Butch. Not
Well, he is younger.
says here, Amen, Alvin, Audie. We still have a lot to do with trumpets. I
Amen.
echo that.
Yes.
I'm
Agreed.
just waiting for the right time because that path will cross again.
Yes.
Oh, hindi pa kayo retired, ha? I know your main call right now is churching, but doesn't stop you from acting at one point.
I act
Amen.
up. You ask Mitch. I act up a lot.
Yeah, there's drama. There's drama here in the house.
definitely,
Not just him, but us and the kids. There's drama here.
Bye, Tito Audie. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay tuned for our
Next Sabado
nights. But tonight we've had the privilege of having Mr. Audie Gemora, the king
of musical theater.
Philippine musical theater.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody, for
Bye.
tuning in. Bye, Alvin, Mitch.
Bye, Tito
Bye,
Audie.
Tito.